Alrighty, welcome back. Hopefully the audio issues and the delay issues are gone. We've tested it for a little while behind the scenes here. Dom, how you doing now? Can you hear me okay?
Google Chrome, man. Google Chrome. I switched I switched over to my other laptop and using Brave, and it seems to be working better. Although I couldn't get the mic moved over in time, so here we are. Hopefully, it sounds okay.
On my end, it sounds much better. Hopefully CJ is still tuning in and can let us know if things are better on their end as far as what they're getting. Gotta love the glories of doing this show live, right?
Yeah. Well, we know never to use Google Chrome again.
Which is funny because that's what they recommend for our program. So we're looking at a few things to also so that this doesn't continually happen. Because I don't know if it's the programs, if it's the servers. I don't think it's our computers because it doesn't happen hardly any time we're not on live. So that's the fun part. Anyway, so we were talking before technology decided to rudely interrupt us. You were talking about and trying to share some stuff that you're getting from the general managers getting together at the Hlinka Gretzky tournament.
Yeah. So every team has a group of people there, right? But obviously, I'm not there, but I'm talking to a couple of people that are there, and they're saying a lot of communication going on between general managers, having dinner together. Uh, we talked before the tournament started that this is where groundwork could be laid for anything to happen before the season starts. We know there are teams that are not done making moves. The Bruins obviously being one of them. So we'll see what comes out of it. Um, there's what 5 weeks until training camp starts, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's gonna go quick. So, all right, awesome. We got Jason here saying things sound a lot better. So perfect. Thank you, Jason. And hopefully everybody is able to find the new show. Like we're sending out the links and stuff. It's all on the same page. So we'll get this set up better for those who are audio only listeners to hopefully have a decent experience listening that way as well. And this is part of why, Dom, actually, before we get to the very end of the show, where we have a few other good announcements and great announcements that we're looking forward to, this is where probably a good time to mention to people we're looking at probably migrating the show completely onto YouTube. A lot of stuff that we're seeing, there's changes that are coming to Twitter as far as their lives and all that stuff. And it's just not going to be worth doing on theirs. And for these kinds of technical issues, if we can hammer out just using YouTube, then we'll be able to bring you guys a much better and cleaner and clearer show. So we're going to focus heavily, entirely on our YouTube video experience, and then of course still have that audio platform on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that you can get your podcasts. Dom, anything to add to that?
No, no, but it is what it is. Technology, right? It's
Of
all
course,
it's
can't
all
live
about
with
the
it,
money.
can't live without it. Yeah, can't live with it, can't live without it. So if we're able to do just the YouTube though, I think we'll be able to use a slightly different studio, and that'll probably help hammer out some of the issues that we're having. Because I don't know if it's our restream, if it's the internet, but anyway. We also wanted to talk about the Bruins lineup, but I agree with you as far as what we're getting out of those GM conversations. I wouldn't be surprised if before the season we have one more just blockbuster type deal throughout the league. I'm not saying it's going to be with the Bruins, but just with how much chatter that they can have in person and what can be laid, that's usually what we see come out of these. It might even happen before the trade deadline, but we're going to see at least one or two more major blockbuster moves because teams aren't afraid to move their players anymore.
No, and of course Larkin is still out there. Talk is heating up about Hellebuyck again. Um, Buffalo is heavily rumored to be in on him. Has been all summer long, really. So we'll see. Something is going to happen.
Yeah, and there's still a couple of key restricted free agents out there as well. Cutter Gauthier is still unsigned. Adam Fantilli is still not signed. Nikishin's still not signed. Simon Evanson in Detroit, who's they're going through their GM stuff right now, but Kevin Korchinski's unsigned. I'm not saying the Bruins are going to be in on any of these names, but if conversations between GM and agent go sour, anything can happen at that point.
Yeah, and you know, it, as we were saying before we got all screwed up, it's the dog days of summer. Um, I was saying that national media right now is running over to Puckpedia and looking at their GM mode and pulling uh, trade discussions or trades that fans are proposing and using that as a discussion point. Um, I laugh at it because there is real hockey to discuss, like real actual stuff happening, and nobody wants to talk about it. I don't hear anybody mentioning anywhere about the Hlinka Gretzky tournament and how GMs are all together under one roof and having discussions. Um, you know,
And
it
it's
just
funny. It's funny that you say that because anytime a GM is with another GM at a game during the season, it's the biggest headline. It's the biggest
yeah,
clutch your pearls headline of, Don Sweeney goes to Bruins game in St. Louis and sits next to, Doug Armstrong. Okay. No, everybody's got to have that message. It's like, or they're just playing each other and they sat down next to each other to say hello.
yeah, or tweet out which scouts are at the game, right? Which
Right,
almost
right.
it doesn't mean anything anyway. So yeah, it is what it is. You know,
Scout
we,
does job by attending NHL game. That's the
yeah,
headline.
I'd rather just keep it real here and discuss what is actually happening rather than make believe stuff. So um, it is what it is, right?
Absolutely. So you wanted to start some conversation about the Bruins lineup because we don't know what they're going to have for their moves coming forward and who they may or may not continue to have. But I definitely wanted to dive into that conversation. Is there anything else? Because I know you and I, when we talk about the lineup, we can do several shows going back and forth on does this player fit with this player and all that stuff. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, whether it's related to the Hlinka Gretzky tournament, prospects there, anything like that, before we dive into the Bruins lineup?
Um, no, we'll have a little bit on some of the prospects at the end with an announcement we got to make. Yeah, I think I think the Bruins have too many bodies. Something's going to have to. If we get at the lineup, starting in net, we know Jeremy Swayman is the number one. Michael DiPietro is going to be given every chance to run with backup role. Um, they brought in Yuri Patera in, got what, 9, 10 games of NHL experience uh, as a backup plan to Pietro should he not meet expectations. I don't think the Bruins are satisfied with that. I get asked a lot about potential PTOs. I don't see one on defense or up front, but I could see one happening with a goaltender just so that they feel a little bit comfortable. I shouldn't say I can see one. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring a goaltender in on a PTO.
Yeah, especially with someone who's looking to try to kind of catch on for the last little bit of their career. Because I feel like if they go PTO route with a goaltender, it would be a veteran. There's a couple out there. Someone like a Connor Ingram, who had played well in Edmonton, could come in and try to show other teams that need goaltending help by, and again, if DiPietro can't take that backup job, he's not going to cost you $3 million a year to give a 1 year contract. And he could be someone that, if you want to try to give DiPietro some time during the season, depending on how that's going for you, you might be able to move on from or sneak through waivers or something to that effect because he's gotten through waivers before. So, if you need $1 million
Yeah,
backup because DiPietro's proven not to be there at the start of the year, someone like Ingram, Reimer, Cam Talbot, like they know what they're signing up for.
exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one there. And even you bring him in on a PTO if DiPietro is fine, then you release whoever you bring in. No money spent, no nothing. So no
Yeah.
commitment. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one there.
Yeah, and as we were talking about the forward group, one of the thoughts that I had was they already have too many forwards, and Matt Poitras still unsigned. So, and I do agree with Jason makes a point here that
Yeah,
and I agree. I think they're going to give like Reichel a long look in camp. I think he's someone that they really like. Sturm really liked, and so like Lucas Reichel is your PTO for the forward group essentially. Like you already have some in house.
yeah. So I mean, the goaltending is pretty easy. And now, if you go to the defense, boy, there's a lot of questions there. Um, Without taking out um, McAvoy's suspension, I don't know what the plan is there, now, or what the pairs even look like. But you have a cup. There's um, if you want to include Billy Sweet, 11 defensemen.
Yeah,
But we won't include Sweezy in it. But when McAvoy comes off his suspension, you've got 10 defensemen. How this plays out is beyond me. Um, you know, they're still trying to make a move, whether it's Mason Lohrei, Henry Yoki Hairu, or whoever. Um, you've heard me say many a times about Lohrei. I don't want to trade him. I want to see what he does under Matt McElvey on coaching him. I don't think Jay Leach was good for him. I don't think it was good for any of the defensemen. um, Yoki
also,
Hairu it doesn't seem that Sturm really wants to give him the opportunity in Boston. Um,
yeah, real quick
you
with
know,
Lohrei too. He's still under 200 career games, and
yeah,
oftentimes defensemen
fair.
take that 250 mark to really make
Yeah,
their presence. So I wouldn't want to give up on him just yet. I'm not against trading him, and I don't think you are either. It's just what's the return look like? I'm not just
yeah,
giving him away.
yeah. But if you put the graphic up again,
Yep.
um, we know Zadorov's going to be there. We know Lindholm, McAvoy, Borgen, Clifton are going to be there. So it comes down to Freddie Brunet, Jonathan Aspro, and Jordan Harris. Henry Yokiairu. There's just too many bodies. Um, I I don't know that. I guess the good thing is that Yoki Hairu is a right shot defenseman. Had a good world championships, was good in the Olympics. Somebody might want to bite on him, but you'd think that if there was interest, it would have been done by now, don't you think?
If it was heavy enough interest, yeah, I think where Boston's going to land themselves, and we do have a good question here on this topic, and this is where most fans are bringing up their concern with the defensive group is can you keep Lohrei and not lose Frederick Brunet, and that's kind of a wait and see because when you're trying to get some of these guys through waivers, you you can keep most of these guys because they only have a 24-hour claim window in the waivers. So if you can time it based on other teams putting players on waivers and who they have, like if you put Frederick Brunet on waivers, someone has to be so confident he's going to make their NHL roster and make that team better for them to claim him. So there are a handful of teams.
There's teams that can't. Chris. There's teams that are desperate for defensemen.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm not saying right now Frederick Brunet clears. I'm just saying if you time it right, you might be able to get him through, depending on where they're all at. We were just talking. None of these GMs think their rosters are done. So, but could you get someone like Jordan Harris through waivers? Probably. Jonathan
Probably.
Aspero. What's that?
Aspro, I don't think so. He'd
Okay.
be tough.
What
He'd
about
be tough.
Harris?
Harris, I think, would clear waivers.
Do you think you could get Henry Jokiharju through waivers?
Um, a little less confident about it because he's right shot. Um, but it wouldn't matter then because if you lost him, you move his contract out of the way. But I'd be more inclined to trade him. Look, you can keep Brunet and Lohrei on the roster. It just might mean that you're carrying 8 defensemen for a while.
That was my next question is, do you see them carrying 8 defensemen and only 1 extra forward, which I wouldn't be surprised to see them do.
They did it in Claude Julien's era. They did it partially under um, Bruce Cassidy. I don't think they ever did it under Montgomery, and they certainly didn't do it last year. So, but they could. They could.
I think it depends on who that 13th forward ends up being and
Yeah.
how the forward lineup, shakes out. Because if you have to carry, like, you could carry 8 defensemen if you end up waiving Michael Easimont, which I'd be totally fine with.
I think 99.98% of the Bruins fan base would be fine with that.
I know I'm not exactly breaking news with that statement, but they would be upset if it meant they kept Lucas Reichel on the forward group. Some would be.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
um, yeah, we are getting a question from Rick here. He says he lives in Colorado, so he's not quite familiar with Frederick Brunet. Is curious what some of his strengths are and what people like in his game, why he might be making that jump. I'll let you do that because I know how much you really like Brunet.
Yeah, I've always liked Freddie. Um, there when he was in the queue, I used to get a lot of questions asking for comparisons, and he was just such an unfinished product. What he was a dynamic offensive defenseman who could skate, thought the game very well, had great vision, could quarterback a power play, but lacked physicality and lacked um, I, I guess to put it bluntly, lacked a defensive game that would succeed in the NHL. Now, credit to him, he went to the AHL and he put in all the work. He's become more physical. He's become uh, steady defensively. He hasn't lost his transition game. Still offensively sound, but he doesn't go out there thinking offense first. I think his details to his game have gotten a lot better, and I don't think there's much more he can learn at the American Hockey League level. So, um, I hate comparisons,
Yeah, I know.
but he's a Mason Lohrei with more physicality and better details to his defensive game. How's that?
I like that comparison, and he's also 3 years younger, which is nice as well. And that's why a lot of people are looking at it as a Frederick Brunet or Mason Lohrei conversation. And then Jason also adds that there's always someone that has a surprise camp, interested to see who it could be this year, and it really could be Frederick Brunet.
It could be. It could be. I know um, his work ethic. I did an article a couple of years ago about him and how his career has gone. Uh, I'll have to bring it up at some point. Go back and look for it. But just the way he's developed uh, is all credit to him. His work ethic. The same with Matt Poitras. A couple of years ago, Um, when he was looking to make the roster, I said, don't sleep on him.
Yep,
Make
I remember that.
camp. Just because of his work ethic and his details and his commitment to improving his game. Freddie Brunet is the exact same. The exact same. And now, will it translate to the NHL? There's only one way to find out. Give him ice time, give him some rope, allow him to make mistakes without benching him or sitting in the next game or whatever. It's the only way we're going to find out. But I wouldn't bet against him.
Are you ready to transition to the forward grouping at all?
Yeah, unless you got any more questions about the defense.
I think what they do on defense, as far as who they keep, it depends on what they end up doing with their forward group because of that potential eighth spot that they may or may not have, and that's where you could see Henry Jokiharju and Freddie Brunet. I do think they can. I don't want to say give away Jonathan Aspro, but they could trade him for a fourth round pick very easily at the start of camp for
Mhm.
a team that's desperate for defensemen and depth at that position. So I'm not
Exactly.
that worried as far as the number of bodies because there are ways out of it that still bring something in. It's just where do you find the value? Like Jonathan Aspro would be perfect to be that seventh defenseman, but then you're stuck with Brunet, Clifton, Yoki Haru. Like those three guys you got to figure out. Some of these guys can play their offside. So like Mason Lohrei looked significantly better last year playing on the right side with Hampus Lindholm. I do wonder if they explore those options, but you only got 4 preseason games. So it's not like they have a lot of runway into the regular season to figure this
Yeah,
out. And I do think the coaching change is going to help some of these guys significantly. Like Mason Lohrei is someone who we could see have a major turnaround from last year because of the coaching.
exactly. But let's not forget that um, I know people are flipping out because James Hagens is apparently going to be in the prospects challenge against the Sabres, but they only have 4 exhibition games, which is why you will see James Hagens, you will see Freddie Brunet, you might see Matt Poitras, um, you might see Reichel in that tournament just to get a longer look at them.
Can they send Simone Zayachek?
Yes.
I might think about sending him too. I mean, obviously, he's not very likely to make the NHL roster, but to get him the extra time, because if you're not able to bring in a goaltender on a PTO, or if you don't have that option out there, at that point you have a three-way battle between Patera, Zayachek, and DiPietro for that third spot. Obviously, DiPietro is the favorite, but if he's not up to par, we've seen Michael DiPietro, just like Brandon Bussey, had bad camps a couple years straight, and if you can get Zayachek some ice time before camp, he might be able to surprise you. I'm not saying he's a long shot to make the roster by any stretch, but the core for his game, the foundation, is there. You and I both saw it last year.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think that they view Zajac ahead of Patera.
I don't think so, but that extra ice time at the beginning on the front end might be
Yeah.
able to help him. I'd send him if they can, which it sounds like they can. So, with the forward group, you
Uh-huh.
mentioned we exactly. We mentioned Matt Poitras. I think we are in agreement, you and I at least, despite what people are trying to push for. Don Hoshmelis starts in Providence because of injury recovery.
Hmm.
Period. End of statement. Correct?
Absolutely. He will be ready, by all accounts, should be ready for the start of training camp. He hasn't played hockey since what, January?
January or February, yeah. It's been a
So,
while.
yeah, so he's missed a lot of his training in the summer because he's recovering. So he he's not going to be ready to start in the NHL. There's just no physical way.
Actually, back to that surprise camp question. Like people could look at Wash Mellis in camp and go, "What the hell happened to this guy?" Forgetting that hasn't played and barely skated since February or
Yes.
January. So like that could be a negative shock value from camp. But I really wouldn't put any value on that. I like you said, he's barely skated. He hasn't worked out. He's basically been on his ass for 8 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
So
Well, no, he's done some lower body workouts, but that's not the same as your full off-season workout regimen that you're accustomed to, right? Because he can't do that.
yeah. Do you think Navrin Mutter is someone that could surprise people in camp, or is he just going to be in that first round of cuts?
He's going to be in that first round of cuts. Ivan, different story.
Ivan could turn some names, turn some heads in camp. Riley Duran could also turn some heads in camp as well.
Yeah, but I don't think he's making the team out of camp.
I
He's
don't think he
there.
can.
There's no put up the lineup so people can see it here.
We've got this as the forward grouping.
They're the guys with a legitimate shot, and I don't even have Reichel on there. Um, because unless Middlestad is moving out, where are you going to put Reichel?
Yeah, and that's a question that I have because last year Middlestat really turned around the way people look at his game. He moved to the left side and he fit
Yeah,
quite well. And I know it was that Middlestat Arvidsson connection, that really paid off well. Um, I wonder how they're viewing him at this point, given what he was able to show last year.
yeah. I don't see Reichel making the team out of camp. Uh, these are the 12 guys. Uh, sorry, the 15 guys that have a shot at making the team out of camp. Um, I firmly believe this is just my opinion, and I've been wrong before, but I firmly believe that the top line should be James Hagens, David Pastrnak with Pavel Zaka in the middle. I think with Hagens' puck possession abilities, his vision, head's always on a swivel. You've got two shooters in Zaka and Pastrnak that he could get the puck to. I think that they could be dynamic. Not only that, you can transition him to the middle in different situations of the game, knowing that Pavel Zaka is there as the backup. Um,
My question to you on that, right, is last year we saw several times, especially at BC, we've seen it, but in general with Hagen's games, he looks more comfortable playing the role down the middle. Do you put any stock into that, or do you think if he just starts on the wing, he'll be able to make that transition? He'll look comfortable on the wing or get comfortable in the preseason on the wing, knowing if he's told this is your role on this line, and it's clear those expectations are set from the beginning.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Look better in the middle, but that's why I like him with Zaka. Is that situationally they can swap roles because we know Zaka is also very good on the left wing, right?
Yep.
Um, and at least with the trio, you got some consistency. You can give them the rope. Um, Zaka is very good defensively, so he can help. Um, he can help cover for both Hagens and Pastrnak. So that's why I like that trio together much more than having Hagens with Mitten uh, because of Zaka's ability to switch back and forth from wing to center.
See, this is where I wonder though, because the Bruins have not historically just taken someone like a James Hagens and plopped them on the first line, or even in the top six. And so that's where I wonder if they put him third line and allow him the opportunity to move up in a similar fashion to like what Brad Marchand was able to do it when he started his career, and just given those opportunities, cycle him in. And that's where I wonder if, we'll see Paterka up top instead, or Casey Middlestat even on that line, because Casey Middlestat was good on the forecheck and played a very strong left wing that could, bode well for that Zaka Pastrnak
No,
combination.
no, Middlestad's not playing with
Oh,
Pastrnak.
I was gonna say I just don't
No
see
way.
Middlestat as a top line winger, so that's why I'm so hesitant to that's why I would go Paterka, but
You haven't seen the Bruins do it with a prospect because they haven't had a prospect who was good enough to fill that role.
fair enough.
You could argue Matt Poitras, and they gave Poitras opportunities up there. Poitras played with Marchand. He played with Pastrnak. So I wouldn't say that they don't, but Hagens is on another level, absolute another level, which is why they've got to put him there and they've got to give him the rope.
Fair
And
retort.
I think Pavel Zaka is the guy to pair him with.
I don't disagree. I'm interested to see what they do. I like this. I would do that. I'm hesitant to say the Bruins are going to do it, but I agree with you that as far as the level of prospect, they just haven't had it. So I'm because let's face it, Martian was not that level prospect. He earned all that time.
Yeah, yeah,
So if Hagens comes into camp ready and he shows that he is still at that high level, which I fully expect, then yeah, I would gladly be wrong on that and see him on that top line.
yeah. So moving to the second line, I like Mitten down the middle here because you've got two offensive players in Paterka and Geekie. Because Minton is responsible enough defensively that he can let those two drive the offense. Now we know Morgan Geekie's not a driver, but Paterka is. Paterka would be the driver on that line. Again, strong puck possession guy, can shoot the puck, can also make plays. And if Minton can be that defensive conscious uh, uh, to that line, and Paterka can find Geekie to get his shot, I think you could have a dangerous second line there. Um, uh, but Paterka is going to be the bread and butter of that line. He's going to be the driver. It's not going to be Mitten, and it's not going to be Geekie. Um, uh, but that's my thoughts on that line.
Yeah, I like that line. I agree with you. Obviously there's a lot of players that I would like to see Paterka play with, but I think and I see a lot of people putting Paterka with Zaka and Pastrnak, but I think back and I go, how often were we trying to get game breakers broken up before to spread out and balance the lineup? Like how many times were we trying to say put Pastrnak with Krejci or breaks? You know what I mean? Like break up that Bergeron, Marchand,
Yeah,
Pastrnak line so you have more balance. I think right now, bringing in Paterka right now, he's fresh. It's something new, and now's the time to put him on a pairing with someone like Fraser Minton and Morgan Geekie and allow them to establish as a line, because you can put Geekie and Pastrnak back together with Minton or Patra or Lindholm or Husnutdinov. Like you can put that grouping together and you know what you're going to get. But stir the pot with Paterka with something new.
yeah, absolutely. Um, this third line I do not like at all, but you have to put players someplace, right?
Well, I would also
Uh,
counter that with last year. Did we really like the look of Middlestead, Zaka, and Arvidsson? And look how that turned out.
yeah, but you know, Husnutdinov obviously I love. He'll bring the speed and the energy and be the F1 in on the forecheck. Middlestat will try to be the puck possession guy, and you got to hope you get something out of Lindholm. What that trio lacks is a driver on that one. I mean,
I was going to say, I think it's sad to say this, but I think Husnutdinov is your driver on that line.
yeah, and obviously, I like Husnutdinov as a player, but if he's your line driver, then you have issues with that trio. So a lot of it will depend on Lindholm, whether he's healthy, whether he can give you anything at
There
all.
is one thing I would
Um,
say that I do like about the line, and it's not a major thing, but every single one of these players can play center, and every single one of
yeah,
them can play a wing position. So while this is how
yeah,
we have it on paper, you might find Elias Lindholm on the right wing, Kusadinov on the left, and Middlestat down the middle. It's the same trio, but it might work better that way. Or Husnutdinov down the middle with Lindholm on the right wing and Middlestat on the left wing. That might work better. But again, there's versatility. I like that, but I don't like the trio. Doesn't matter how they line up.
yeah,
They've got to prove it.
exactly. I don't know. I would rather see Matt Poitras there than Lindholm, but it's that still not a line that I'm going to be absolutely confident in. So if they need to make an improvement, that's where it needs to be. Is Reichel the answer? If you move Middlestat and put Reichel on left wing, like Lindholm will not be able to keep up with Reichel and Hustadinov. Absolutely no way will he be able to keep up with them. And I don't think it's an improvement. I think if you move Middlestat and Reichel's your answer there, that's not an improvement on the trio
It's not an improvement.
there
It's just a
at all.
different look of it's a different look of the deck chairs, but they're on the same deck. So it might things work a little better that way, maybe. But I think the big question mark, and Tyler's asking in the questions, do we think it's a lock that Elias is the 3C to start? And unfortunately, I got to say no.
Yeah. So, their weak spot is going to be their third line, no matter which way you cut it. Um, um, the only alternative to making it better would be moving Lindholm up to the second line and Mitten down to the third line. But I think then you've weakened two lines.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is any other difference? Like right now, you have a strong, very strong top six. If you move anyone
Yeah,
out of that top six, you don't really improve the top six. The only argument that I think could be made for that, and it's simply because we saw them last year, is if you swap Hagens and Hustadinov, put Hustadinov, Zaka, and Pastrnak together, that might improve it just based off of pure experience together. But it also lowers the ceiling a little bit, probably quite a bit,
yeah,
honestly. So I really don't see it as an improvement. It's probably more of a wash. Other than that, it you're weakening a different line to improve your third line. Period. End of story. Unless Matthew Poitras proves to be the answer and he can gel with the different kinds of players that are there, but then you're relying on a wild card of Patra, a wild card of Lindholm. You still have too many other players that you're trying to figure things out with, and it's still only within the bottom six.
yeah. Now you're talking about the bottom six. Patra and Castellan. I mean that has the potential to be a very good line. We saw them together at the Winter Classic, and they were Patra was the best player on the ice. Um, and you could almost consider that the third line.
Yeah, you probably
Um,
could actually.
so you know, if line one, two, and four play out like that, the weak spot is line three. And I don't know that there's anybody else in the system uh, that would make it any better than Middlestat, Lindholm, Husnutdinov. Um, so it is what it is. I think they're the 12 that should be on the opening night roster, and then you've got Corrali, Isimont, and Steves. um, Corrali's my 13th forward. I don't know what you think.
I think almost based on this lineup by default he would be, because he provides the ability to be versatile with some of the other players. So for instance, Marat Husnutdinov, if you needed to move him up in the lineup, then Janot could take his spot on the third line, and now you could do Corrali, Patra, and Kastelik on your fourth line. You could
Yeah,
move Patra around. Obviously, Corrali just slides right into that 4C spot. So, you know, he himself may not have the same versatility as others, but being that he can play wing, the right side, he can play down the middle on that fourth line, it allows you to move some of the guys who are better than him to other slots.
exactly. So, um, if they go with 8 defensemen, then you're waving Eastmont and Steves, and you know what? I'm absolutely fine
I was
with
gonna say,
that.
I think of your forward group, those are the two that you could look at and go, "Yep, they'll get through waivers." I don't see anybody really. Yeah, I mean, Steve's
Even
maybe.
if they don't, even if they don't get through waivers, I don't care if
Oh
they
no,
don't
I don't
get
care
through
if they don't
waivers.
get through waivers either. But I'm just saying, like, if you look at those two and you put them on waivers, then all right, cool. You lose them or you don't. You don't really care that much. They would be
Yeah.
great to help in Providence if you can get them through as veteran guys who can help with some of the other guys that you're bringing in down there. But they don't make you lose
Even
sleep.
Providence, even Providence is crowded now. I think they signed somebody else to an AHL contract yesterday. I think they've got 13 players, 12 or 13 players under AHL deals in Providence for this upcoming season. Uh, plus your guys under NHL contracts.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some guys that they want to get a look in Providence to kind of lean on right now. I do think we're going to see a little bit of a philosophical change down there in terms of who gets opportunities and how much, but they are still trying to compete for their own Calder Cup. So I think you've mentioned it before. The direction of Providence will be shown based on how they treat one guy, and that's Loke Johansson.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if he's not getting ice time and he's in the ECHL again or whatever, then uh, we know that they haven't really changed direction and are worried about development because he's been there for what 2 years now and has barely played in the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
Even didn't even get half a season in the ECHL last year. So now, mind you, some of it was due to injury, but um, that's besides the point. I got their roster here. Um, let's not forget Attilio Biasco as well. Um, the free agent signing out of Europe this year. But they've got 12 players under AHL contracts.
Yeah. And that's before seeing any of them do anything, because a lot of these players weren't here before, and the ones that were here before you didn't really see a lot of. Like Billy Sweezy, he is what he is. Like you're not doing
Yeah,
anything to really grade Billy Sweezy, but like Loke Johansson, Don Melis is a question mark because you don't know how healthy he's going to be. Um,
yeah.
but he's not one that you're really worried about. Brunet, if he's in Providence, you really know what to expect there. I would love to see a top pairing in Providence of Brunet and Gallagher just to push that development path.
They were when they were together last year. They were dynamite.
They really were. And then Gallagher got hurt, and
Yeah,
then they moved things around because Gallagher had the broken ankle, missed some time, and then they moved juggled around with Brunet and whatnot. Um, Loke Johansson, I think, would be good to pair with someone like Billy Sweezy.
But let's not forget, we could have two guys under NHL contract down there as well. So as of right now, they got two, four, five, six, seven, eight defensemen,
Yeah.
with two more coming from Boston. Um, hard to say. Like they brought Max Wanner wasn't qualified. They didn't qualify him. Now they brought him back on an American Hockey League deal. Well, what's the point?
Yeah, that I don't get. That's a move I don't get. You didn't qualify him for a reason. You want him down in Providence, and but over who? Like I would much rather see guys that you haven't seen get time down there or who have a slightly higher upside.
Yeah, I know they're going to give Dylan McKinnon some time, and probably with Johansson, because they played together in the queue, and they were good together. So you might see them try to put them together and see what happens. Uh, Ty Gallagher, he's still open to sign an NHL contract with anybody.
Yeah, but don't the Bruins have first right of refusal on that?
No, no, because he's a UFA in the NHL.
Okay, fair, fair.
He's only on an AHL deal.
Yeah,
So
I didn't know
uh,
because they had drafted him. There was a first right of refusal
yeah,
option or something. But I feel like the Bruins would match if someone came along and said we're going to give him an NHL contract, and they went to Boston and
yeah,
said he's getting this offer.
yeah, but his injury didn't help him last year. So
No,
um, speaking of which, August 15th is next week.
yes, it is.
Uh, yeah, so we've already lost Andre Gassot in the trade to San Jose. We already lost Oscar Jelvik to where did he go? Sweden,
Yes,
I
I believe it
believe.
was Sweden.
So we're going to lose Phillips back next week, and we're going to lose Mason Langenbrunner next week.
Well,
So
yeah,
they lost four prospects.
Langenbrunner, I don't count because he basically already said I'm done with hockey. And Svedback, I'm
Yeah.
not worried about because every single goaltender other than him in the system, I like better than him.
Oh yeah, I've been saying that for four
I
years.
know. I'm just saying, like losing those two officially, if anything, is probably a good thing because it opens up a couple contracts or a couple spots that in the organization that they don't have to worry about filled. But they're not
Well,
under contract, so that it wouldn't be contract spots.
it's not so much that it's that you lose four prospects in one off season like that is unheard of, really, in the NHL.
Especially when your draft history is what it is,
Yeah,
it doesn't help.
yeah. So like to have four that all expire at the same time, and you couldn't get one of them. Um, I mean, Gasol is obviously a different story, but it is what it is.
It's funny because after that trade with Colorado and whatnot, your 2021 draft, Lascelles gone, Harrison gone, Svedback expires, Jelvik you've traded, Mast you traded, and Gasso is gone, and Gallagher's the only one you have left.
Yeah,
Your 217th overall selection that year.
and I really like Gallagher. He had
Yeah.
one bad season, which was basically due to coaching decisions.
Yep. Yep. And
You know,
and the kid's a battler, man. He's a battler.
yeah,
So you talk about someone who might come into camp and make you go, oh, okay, he could do that. I'm not saying he's going to earn an NHL spot, but he could turn some heads this camp. Like this is the camp for him to start doing that.
yeah,
And that's where you got to be careful because if he has a strong camp, then another team that is desperate for defensemen and he is a right shot can easily look at him and go, he could be our bottom pair third man up on the right side. And then you're left with nobody from
Yeah.
the 2021 draft.
Well, not surprising, is it?
No, no. I think the biggest surprise that we have from that though is like, Harrison didn't develop the way he could have. Svedback went the wrong direction, and Fabian Lysell, as some would say, was never given an opportunity. So, you got 12 NHL games so far out of that entire draft class. It's but we all know this. Sweeney sucks at drafting. There we go. I said it for everybody. Um,
Thank you.
but my question to you is: does that mean Sweeney is bad at drafting, or does that mean that their player development process is flawed? Because if
Um,
we're gonna discredit Sweeney for drafting, well, you moved Lysell and got Ivan, so maybe that turns into something. You moved Harrison in a trade. You moved Mast in a trade. You moved Gasso in a trade. So even as bad, quote unquote, as these players are, you still were able to move them.
yeah, I don't think you can call that a development issue because some of them didn't get an opportunity to develop in the Bruins system. Um, Harrison didn't play a lot in Providence.
He had 3 years there,
You
though.
know, yeah, 30 games, 40 games. Never played a full season.
47, 46, 46, and 12. So, yeah.
Right? So he never played. Ryan Mast uh, never played a full season in Providence. Mostly in the ECHL. And let's face it, the Maine Mariners, while a Bruins affiliate, is not there to develop players for the Boston Bruins.
No.
They're there to hold roster spots for players that might be needed in Providence. That's what they are. They're not a Bruins development system. Um, so what? Mass never played a full season in Providence. He barely played in Providence, so that's not a developmental issue. Um, Mast was absolutely the kind of guy you take a swing at in late rounds
Oh, yeah.
because he showed potential with the Sarnia Sting. Just it just never developed. Um, that's not on him. That's not on the Bruins for taking the swing. Um, and not even on the Bruins for development because they barely got the opportunity to work with them.
One other asterisk that I want to put next to that 2021 draft, the entire class, and this is applicable for every GM of that year. Some are probably going to get more lucky than others. That happens every draft, but that 2021 draft class, their 2020 season was basically non-existent, and their 2021
Yeah,
season was at best screwed up if
yeah,
it happened. So as much as we want to sit there and say, oh, bad drafting, bad player development, these players didn't play for almost 2 years in some instances.
yeah,
So
yeah.
to be wrong in that, and then when you look at the 2022 class, you're seeing better results from that because Patra, Brunet, Loshmelis, those three look like they could hit. If you get 3 hits out of that draft class,
You've done
you've
well.
done well. And that doesn't include
You
Spicer.
yeah. And Spicer's a different story because talented kid has the skills. He's suffered through off ice things that he had no control over, and this is a big year coming up for him. To see if he can bounce back. I'm hoping for the kid. I like the kid. I like the way he plays. I like his skill level. But he played what 13 games last season, 12 games,
Something like that. Yeah.
I think, in Michigan. So
And he was a
um,
half a point per game player. So
yeah, he's got to get a full season in this year. There's no two ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then I think his rights expire August of 27, so next year. Um, I wouldn't bring him in on an NHL contract, but I'd bring him in on an AHL deal.
Oh yeah, kid can play net front.
You
Like the kid's got grit. He's got net front presence. Like he can fight his way through this. It's just a matter of whether or not he does.
yeah. So I'd hate to give up on him, but you know, the issues everybody knows he's had concussion issues, depression issues, like mental health, and then the whole schooling thing where he basically lost a year of college because his grades weren't up to par.
Which probably is related to some of the other issues and things that he was going through.
Yeah,
So, I will say this: if he does battle through all this, the resilience factor has to be super high for this kid.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
overall, with the lineup that they have, NHL level, I think they can be more competitive than I think some will give them credit for, and I think the long term health of the organization is better than what some will give them credit for, what many will give them credit for. It's There's just so many sticks in the fire that are question marks. I mean, uh, I think it was Tyler asked about Elias Lindholm being a lock for the third line center before. But to his point, if he's healthy, how good is he? If he's healthy, if the new way of treating his back and the recovery and all that stuff works, then does he jump back into that 2C spot or even the 1C spot? It's possible, but I think it's a low chance. Back injuries, as Ian, low quality Bruins fan, says, you never hear a player say, "I used to have a bad back."
Yeah, exactly. Although I've said it, you know, because I did used to have a bad back, but I don't play professional hockey, so
Right. And your definition of a bad back isn't going to prevent you from bending over and taking face-offs 30 times in a game. It's going to
no,
make you sore when you get up off the couch.
yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly.
but the question then becomes, could he move over to the right wing? How would he look there? If you're taking the pressure off of him to do center work and take all those face-offs, he is a good secondary center for some face-offs, but if he's only doing it 10 times a game, and he's partnered next to a James Hagens, for instance, who you want to have down the middle, like there are other ways of going about it, but that is all dependent on how everyone else does.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're moving Lindholm to the wing to limit his center responsibilities, then you're moving him from what is supposed to be the strength of his game,
Yeah.
and that's playing down the middle, right? So I don't know. It'd be nice if they could get out from under that contract, but
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be able to do that this year. Probably not even next year. Like I think their best bet over the next couple of years at that point is if his injury is bad enough to just use the LTIR, find a way to make that a viable option. But I in the future, with the way the cap is going up, there are going to be some teams that are going to want that cap hit. As
yeah,
people don't like what people are signing for, that Elias Lindholm contract could be very appealing to a team like Columbus in a couple years. And if he's in and out of the lineup, he may just look for a spot where he can just basically finish out his career. I mean, the player's got a no movement clause, so that's the problem there. But teams will inquire about that cap hit.
that's well, if the player isn't playing, he won't care about the no
Well,
movement
that
clause.
too.
Like compare it to this: if you can move Carey Price's $10 million cap hit, where he hasn't played in 2 years, you can move Elias Lindholm.
Yeah.
to achieve that.
Ryan Ellis still has an active contract, I believe.
Yeah. So, there you go. It like you said, there will be teams that will need it at some point. I don't think for the Bruins to put him on LTIR will benefit them with the amount of cap space that they have available.
I was
So,
gonna say it's not a viable plan right now, but if they can
no,
find a way to utilize that if they need to, Don Sweeney is
yeah,
creative enough to work through that,
yeah,
or
yeah. So
he was when he had Evan Gold as his assistant GM. The question is he still creative enough to do that now with others as his assistant GM?
I'm sure Jimenez will figure it out. He's a
I think so.
CBA expert, so maybe not the NHL one, but I'm sure he's spent some time reading the 600 and some odd pages of it since he got the job.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure that's what they pay him to do. So he's probably taken that to a cabin in the woods and sat down and read it. So, um, oh well, I just saw this. Now that Kevin is here, we're gonna have
Speaking of
to
which,
wrap up.
speaking of which, I don't know if I pointed this out in a previous episode. So we because there's so much talk about the Leafs' first round draft pick um, in 2027 and 2028. Um, and I know that the Athletic wrote an article a while ago saying that the Philadelphia Flyers have been told that the 2027 pick will be theirs. And the latest that I've found out is this: the NHL has not made a decision. They have not. They have not notified any team of anything. So I took it a couple of steps further and asked a couple of sports lawyers. Now, with the caveat that they don't have all the legal language of what's involved in the trade, only the information that I could give them, and that's the information that's totally out there. They are of the belief that the way I explained it to them, that the Leafs Flyers trade was the first one made. And the condition of that trade was that if it's a top 10 pick, Philadelphia's pick would move to 2028. That is the number one condition of that trade. Forgetting anything that Boston did afterwards. So that if that pick finishes in the top 10, the Flyers have no right to that pick as written.
That's also my
Or as
understanding on how it's been presented.
which means that the Bruins pick from 2026 would transfer to 2027. Again, I asked two sports lawyers. They don't have the legal language of what's actually in the deal, and therefore, um, that's what they're basing their decision on. If it's outside the top 10, no ifs ands or about it. It belongs to the Flyers, and the Bruins would get 2028. Here's what I'm drawing out of all this that's being said is the NHL has not made a decision because they're just hoping it falls out of the top 10, and they don't have to make a decision then. And they'd rather not make a decision.
Is it they haven't made a decision, or they're just not announcing the decision and their stance on it because, like you said, they're just hoping for it not to be an issue?
Daly's last words were, "We have not made a decision. It's complicated." And like I said, I think they're hoping it just finishes outside the top 10, and that way they don't have to make it.
Watch it finish at 11.
It automatically goes to the Flyers, and the Bruins get 2028. If for some reason, and and this is what is told to me. If for some reason the NH if it's in the top 10 and the NHL says, okay, the Flyers get to choose where who they give the pick to, the Bruins have a legal ground um, to appeal the decision. Um, so we'll see where it comes, what happens to that. So
Yeah, again, to your point, without having the legal wording, I would tend to believe what those lawyers were saying because that trade happened first, so it supersedes anything. And then,
yeah,
because like I think it was a couple weeks ago where I pointed out, if it was just the Flyers pick and the Bruins trade didn't happen, right? Then if it's the seventh overall pick, it's draft day. Toronto can still trade that pick. They have the seventh pick and they
yeah,
can still trade it. And in this
yeah,
instance, they traded it before the draft occurred.
right.
So that's where I think the league is going to fall onto it. I just think they're going to take their sweet time and, like you said, hope that people stop asking about it and it just resolves itself in Philadelphia getting the 15th or 19th pick. So if you're Boston, though, is that a pick that you're looking to move, or are you waiting to see what happens and comes to fruition with that because you get it in 2028 completely unprotected as your worst case scenario, but your best case scenario is you get a top 10 pick in the 2027 draft?
Well, I'm not trading if it's top 10 next year. I'm not trading it.
That's what I'm
Absolutely.
saying. I wouldn't be flaunting that
Have,
Toronto pick.
have you watched any of the Hlinka Gretzky? Man, there's some nice players in the
Uh,
top. There's no there's other than Landon Dupont. There's not much in terms of defensemen in the top 10, but there's some darn good hockey players. I'd be open to moving my own
that
pick.
was my next question. I would move my pick. I would move my first rounder. So that would be good. But yeah, we are just creeping past the hour mark. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we get to our couple big announcements here?
No, we'll just get to the announcements. Um, so in the next couple of weeks, we're lining up some prospects that we'll be interviewing. We're going to try and focus on the prospects that um, fans know the least about or aren't talked about as much. Um, I can pretty much assure you that Vashek Blanar will be um a guest coming up in the next 2 weeks. We're just because of the time difference. I'm trying to finalize some some times. He is going to the Five Nations under 20 as a precursor to their World Junior Championship roster decisions. So he's already started his training camp with HV71 in the SHL. So we're just trying to get the timing down on that. Cole Chandler is another one that we pretty much got uh, um, set up. That'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. But we want to try and bring you some of these prospects that are the lesser talked about guys that fans that may not know enough about, and hopefully we'll get a few more on and can bring that going forward.
Yeah, I think that'd be very exciting. And there are plenty of prospects that this team has that people aren't consistently talking about. Even some of the guys who actually cover Providence or Maine or, some of the NCAA, like some of these prospects really do get lost in the woodwork. And I get it. There are a lot of them to try to keep up with. And you do probably the best job out there when it comes to the Bruins specific prospects. But Letourneau, Zellers, Hagens, they're the head turners. People are gonna know them and they're gonna jump all over them. Even someone like Will Moore is that potential to become that in this year's NCAA season. But when was the last time someone mentioned Beckett Hendrickson, Chris Pelosi, Cole Spicer? We talked a little bit about some of them today, but Roberto Enriquez, he's going to fly under the radar for quite some time as a goaltending prospect because everyone's going to focus on Jeremy Swayman. This year's flavor of the month has been Michael DiPietro. So,
yeah,
we'll
unfortunately, it's hard to get the college guys in because once classes start, unless it's a national podcast, they usually don't let them participate in them. But doesn't mean we're not going to try.
Yeah, and to that I would say is the more people who like the show, follow the show, subscribe to the show, especially on YouTube, the more leverage we have to say like, hey, we should be able to have them on. So
yeah, we should. Colin McRae, Bruins draft pick this year, played with Fargo Forest last year. Is going to Eastern. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Northeastern in 27, 28. Had his rights traded in the Owen Sound attack to the Brantford Bulldogs. Fabulous move. Brantford paid a hefty price to secure his rights. So he's going to one of the run organizations in the world. I'm working on getting him in on the podcast. I'm told that he will be available to us. He'll be made available to us by the Bulldogs. Just have to work out a day and a time. So there's an interesting story of that fans may not know a lot about. We'll be sure to be bringing him on if we can work out a schedule with him. So yeah, that's what's coming up.
Yep. And let me just see if we have any questions that we haven't really gone over here. Tyler, we mentioned his question about Elias at 3C. If he's healthy, is any improvement over Minton? If Elias is fully healthy, how do you grade him against Fraser Minton?
If he's then
Yeah.
for another year or two, I have to put him ahead of Minton. Absolutely.
I would agree for at least
fully
another year. Yeah, that's the
at
question.
least a year, maybe two.
And then Jason's question, is there any chance that Hagens starts in Providence as Providence's 1C?
Well, Jason, yeah, there's a chance because the Bruins like to play the waiver game, and there's two that are waiver, either Minton and James Hagens.
Yeah.
So yeah, they like to play that game. So I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't say it's a great chance, but there's a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, and it may be one of those things where if there's another team who is trying to get a player through waivers in their camp, they may sit there and say, we need an extra week. Buy us a week. And if the Bruins send someone like a Hagens down for a couple days, mostly as a paper transaction in the beginning of the season, they can always call him back up.
Yeah, now he'd have to play one game in Providence. So
yeah, but I mean, if Hagens plays in one game in Providence, I wouldn't consider that the end of the world or anything like that. I think they're away from some of the guys that would be a bigger concern with. And I think if you just said to Hagens like, "Hey, we need a couple days to do X, Y, Z," I don't think he would complain.
No, I just don't think it's a move they should make.
I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
I would put it at probably about 2% that either Hagens or Minton get put down in Providence at all.
Still a chance.
Yeah, but it's not zero. Yep. And then Kevin says, my question is, who was the pick traded to first? That's who they should go. Whoever it was traded to first gets the pick at this point, which we kind of went over that. So after those announcements, Dom, is there anything else that that comes to mind before we sign off for another week?
No, I think that about covers it for this week. Stay tuned to our Twitter. Watch for upcoming interviews and stuff going forward, like the ones that I mentioned. But until then, keep it heavy, keep it black, and protect the hub.
And go Bees.
Go Bees.
Welcome to the Dom.Hockey podcast, proudly presented by Bench Rates. Created by a former hockey player, Bench Rates uses a proprietary algorithm to assign a true monetary value to a player's on-ice contributions and lets you compare that value directly to his cap hit. Bench Rates evaluates professional players across leagues worldwide, including the NHL and AHL. Learn more at benchrates.com. Also presented by McKeen's Hockey. McKeen's produces the premier NHL draft guide featuring more than 200 player reports and comprehensive rankings. They also deliver in-depth prospect coverage through their annual team-by-team rankings and their trusted hockey pool yearbook. Visit mckeens.com and subscribe for just $16.50 Canadian for 3 months.